Hi, welcome back to another episode of What Do I Know with me, Joanne, where I find answers to things that I don't know yet. As a parent with young children, I struggle to keep up with their curiosities, and I find that the one thing that I eventually will have to start talking to them about is sex. Now, today I have a guest to help me with that. She's a digital media literacy and family coach. She runs sex education workshops for parents as well as brain defense workshops for children aged 9 to 12, which tackles the topic of online pornography. But she tells me she thinks of herself more as a mother, and she's a mother of 2 older children. Let's hear it from Carol Loi. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Joanne.
Thanks for joining me on this podcast.
Thanks for having me.
This is going to be a very tough conversation we're having, at least from my point of view. Tell me, is there a personal story to why you're doing what you're doing today?
Yeah, I have got 2 girls. They are now 20 and 17. And so when I was a young mother, especially when my daughter was maybe 4 or 5 years old, and everybody was telling me that you need to be the first one to tell your children about, what sex is. And I had no idea. There were not that many books, there was not so much internet searches at that time. And so I had to grapple with things and really get people to talk to, discuss this with, mothers who have gone through the journey. And I think now when my children are older and there's so much more information available, and I am also seeing how technology is shifting, and the kind of environment that our children are growing up in is getting more and more complex. And that's what drives me to create conversations with parents and with young people about this very important topic about what to do with our bodies and our relationship with other people.
Let's start with talking to children of like my children's age. We're talking about 5 to 7, if that's a right category. What should we be talking to them about? And, have you encountered some typical questions that you get from children at that age?
And I think at that age, many of them would be more interested in the science aspect of it, the external parts of it. And so having the conversation about the difference between boys and girls, the difference in the body parts, girls have girls' parts and boys have boys' parts, and there are parts of our body that should be private. And so those kind of conversation relating to body safety is what is also covered in preschools. Lately, there have been some new directions that some of the preschools are taking. And that is good because it teaches the children to honor their bodies and also to respect, their friends.
So some people have also told me that, by a certain age, your children should stop seeing you naked. And I've also even heard from a friend before that, I think that was like when we were in our late teens, and she's saying that, her family just walks around naked, like when they come out of the bathroom, right? And then they just go to their room to get dressed. And it was quite a shock to me because, that's obviously not how my family was. We are always told to cover up, right? And so, this question about when do we stop allowing our children to shower with us, to see us naked, or when do we stop showering our kids, for example?
There would be a certain stage where the children will get a little bit uncomfortable. So my suggestion is not a magic number.
Right.
But to see from the child's perspective. And if they feel uncomfortable, you shouldn't this is okay, this is what we do. and take the lead from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what if they look at us and obviously they look at us and they'll be wondering how come,
True.
Mommy, you have breasts and then, it's, bigger than mine, or, things like that.
Yeah.
So what should we do when we encounter this kind of scenario?
For 5 to 7-year-old is to explain the biology.
Right.
How the body functions.
Right.
Right. That is a purpose for it, and it will grow. And so it's teaching our children understand how their bodies will grow so that they can understand that their body is beautiful, that we want to affirm that your body will change, and just explain as a matter of fact, as natural as possible. I think when we come to talking about this issue with our children, that it is a part of growing up. There's nothing to be shameful of, and whatever question you have, daddy and mommy is a safe space. And so at 5 to 7, whenever the children come to us with a question, I think our posture would be one that, hey, that's a great question, let me tell you, and slowly watch the child's readiness and move from there.
Do you recall what it was like for you when your girls were at that age? Like, did they have any questions for you that you struggled with?
Not really, because the posture I took was to be the first to talk to them about certain issues in advance. So I'll be watching. Is the overall approach. What is their media diet? What are they reading? What are they exposed to? What is the company that they have with their peers? And so taking that layered approach, so to speak, for me and my girls, because we at a very young age we have this very open communication, and the conversations about sexuality, I won't say just sex, because sex is just a portion of the overall understanding, of the responsibility that we have. It's not just how we use our body, but it's also about how we apply the values in our lives to honor ourselves, honor other people, and ultimately what is sex for. I think it is a very values-based choices that parents should discuss with their children from young.
But that is probably not something you would talk to like a preschooler or primary going kid about, right?
I did talk to my children about like the purpose of their body, the purpose of what a kiss is. That is actually part of like the body safety.
Okay.
That we don't touch other people's private parts, that we don't kiss each other.
But then what happens when they see like mommy and daddy, they're kissing, and then it's a sign of love, right? It's how they express love. And then if mommy and daddy is showing love this way, I will also want to show love this way.
Yeah, when it's daddy and mommy.
Right.
We don't do that. You don't see mommy doing that to other men. Right? And you don't see daddy doing it to other women.
And that's the reason why our kids don't watch our shows.
That's good. How would you explain if they manage to catch it, or if their friends say, I saw your mommy kissing another man? What would you say?
Yeah, so I would probably say it's acting, and we don't have a TV at home. My children are also very averse to watching anything that is a little bit dramatic.
Yeah.
Even the music, they would just avoid it. There was only one time they saw like a scene of, I think it was my husband. He was like, it was a fire, and then I think he was trying to save someone. And even then they were afraid. So we never really, and of course, I think the last project that I did, which was Last Madame, it's a no for them. And people have asked me this question as well, like, would you let your kids watch this? And I said, not until they're of the age, because it can be very confusing, right, for a child. And like, what's going on TV? Why is my mom with another guy? And then, already them coming on set and seeing another boy calling me mama because he's playing my son is a little bit like weird for them, and they get a bit possessive.
Yeah.
So I just think that it's important that we are very conscious about what we are showing them and allowing them to watch. So unfortunately, I think I do have to spend a lot of time controlling, like you said, the media diet and what they're watching.
Correct.
Intuitively for me, at this age, when they do have questions about like, where do babies come from, or where do I come from, I tend to also go with that direction of explaining it in a very scientific way. I struggle with the cells part, so I don't even talk about the act, right? I just talk about how cells develop, like from, it's just a cell, and then you grow and you become a baby, and they're generally quite happy with the answer, and they don't ask any more questions about that. But then I have not reached the stage where now that they are in primary school, I mean my oldest is, and you just can't stop the exposure that she's getting from other friends, because other friends come from different family backgrounds. They have different sort of exposure. So I can't control that part and what she's learning from them and hearing from them. And I have not reached that stage yet, but I want to sort of prepare myself to sort of be ready to tackle the questions, or even to spot the signs of when I should be having what kind of conversation with them. Do you have any suggestions for me, like beyond 7? Because like how, like I always say this, right? Like when you're in preschool, your whole hands is like very innocent, and then when you reach a certain age, suddenly holding hands is like, You know, like I like this person, I want to touch this person. So how do I approach this?
Between 8 to 12 is a very interesting season. For some girls, for example, they would hit puberty like 10, like your daughter is now 7.
Yeah. Oh
You've
my
got like
goodness.
3. Yeah. Because then preparing them for what's ahead with the body changes, you know, and the feelings that they might have that comes with it. Sometimes during puberty, some girls would feel a lack of confidence, and that's where we, as mummies, we can affirm them, you know, that. And actually our attitude towards our bodies will rub off our girls. So for example, I do get menses pain, you know, every month. And I always remind myself, if I keep complaining, terrible, you know, every month I get this pain, they are not going to enjoy being a woman.
They're going to be afraid.
Yeah, they would get scared. They were like, you know, and for us to be able to empathize with them, to say that, you know, it might be difficult, but that's because we have great power, which is true. It's kind of like preparing them on what's ahead, empathizing that things might be messy, uncomfortable, painful even, but to say that, you know, I get it, you know, mommy is also a girl, and because there's a longer vision of what's possible in our body. You know, our body, and we are going through all this because we have the body part to be able to carry a baby when the time comes. And so it leads on to like, oh, actually there's a larger purpose for my body. And then to be able to paint with them what is the healthy version of taking care of our body. Because there are also health issues involved in it, what should be the kind of boundaries involved. Those kind of conversation can slowly weave in during the tween stage,
Which is, you're talking about
like 8 to 12.
8 to 12.
Because these are things that they will start to grapple with. That is also the stage where they start to have a little bit more independence in internet usage. They would also then be bombarded with different messages, different, like as you said, you know, it could be music, it could be images. And so being able to tell them what is healthy and unhealthy images, that's where the online pornography sessions that I run with children and their parents come into play, because we want to be able to anchor them on the right understanding, you know, of what healthy relationship with ourselves and other people. What does it mean to honor our bodies and honor other people? So for example, when we talk about pornography, at that age already, right, I'm still at the 8 to 12.
Oh my goodness, it just
Yeah, I know.
feels too young to me. Oh my goodness, I can't like,
Yeah, but as you said, you know, unless we ban them from internet, but even then we can't control when they are in school, when they hear from friends.
But I'm also hesitant to use like banning or control,
Yeah,
right?
so we can't.
Because we want the child to eventually develop some
Correct.
sort of self-control.
That's right.
And to be responsible.
Correct.
And to know that, yes, you have access to all, but you are making the right decisions
Correct.
for yourself.
Yeah.
But to get there, I'm
Yeah.
sure we need to do
Correct.
certain things.
So that is building the internal filter. So parents ask me about filtering and monitoring, right? I would always suggest that yes, you can buy certain plans and, you know, have certain tools, but ultimately the filtering and monitoring must be within the child. Right? They need to know for themselves what is healthy and not healthy, how to control their emotions, how to have self-control in terms of like, I feel very strongly about this, but I want to take control of myself. That is kind of like a moral muscle that we want to encourage our children to have, that even if my friends say something is good, or my friends show me pornography, right? But I need to be able to say that actually that's not healthy, right? That's not something I want to put into my body. I know when to shut my eyes, I know when to walk away, and it's okay to walk away. So it's those conversations that need to come back as the child grows up, to, especially when they're older and tweens, you know, to be able to deal with peer pressure. Peer pressure is not just about, you know, you have this bag, I have my bag, you know, but it's also about pornography is okay, what, you know, we are friends, right? This is so funny, you know, and to be able to say that this is not good. Yeah.
I mean, for you yourself, have you ever had to struggle with any of that in your personal life, like with your daughters? Have they ever asked you any question that left you sort of stumped, or that you were surprised to find out, and how did you cope with that?
So what happened was that we went overseas to visit my sister who was working overseas. So my sister is not married. She didn't have any of those things on her devices. And we went on this trip to visit her without devices, right? It's meant to be a holiday. We want to visit Ayi, right? And so they went there, and the first thing when they see a device is, I want to use the device. And then my sister would tell me, do you know where the girls went? And then we realized that they were on to pornography, and we had to like have this conversation. I have to manage my own emotions, right? It's natural to get like upset. Internally I was just fighting. Haven't I been teaching you about this for a long time? And they were only like 9 and 6 at that time.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah. And so my 9-year-old were exposed to it, and then she showed it to my 6-year-old. Internally, they would tell me later on that they struggle with it. They know it's not right, but sometimes they just go back to it. So they struggled for many years, actually. They don't really tell me, but throughout that time, I was just continuously affirming their sexuality, in the sense that, there are certain things that we need to be mindful of. What is the purpose of dating? How do we take care of our body? Those conversations continued while they were, consuming it from time to time, until when they were in secondary school. In secondary school, they decided for themselves that this is not right. I need to put an end to it. So one of my daughters, she just said that, I'm struggling with it. She was open to talk about it. So I'm very thankful that we have this culture and this trust that she's able to share with me. And then I said, okay, do you want mommy to help you? And she said yes, because for a child's perspective, things can be very tempting, and they are at the stage where it's hard to control temptations. The part of the brain that is more developed during the teenage years, or tween and teens, is actually the middle part that is responsible for feelings. The part that's responsible for making good decisions, understanding long-term consequences of their short-term action, is actually the last part of the brain that grows. It only matures when they are mid-20s.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
no.
their feeling part is naturally stronger than the thinking of consequence part.
Yes.
Which is why they still need adults, caring adults around them. I learned that it's no amount of nagging, no amount of parental control, right, that would help them to decide what is good for them. It's that constant conversation, that also a sense of maturity, right, that would help them to decide for themselves. That internal filter will be more established. And I think it's much more empowering where they take ownership of their decisions and choices than for us to be always harping, always controlling. So as they were in their secondary school years, actually I'm not so uptight about parental controls in terms of technology tools anymore, because I told the girls that, we want to be exposed and have a chance to decide what they want to do with the exposure. I mean, in short, right, the early years is really giving them space to grow, giving us space to talk to them about what's healthy. And then when they go into the older years, tween or teen years, it's more about, helping them to process the different things that they are consuming, what they're hearing from their friends, what they're seeing from TikTok or Instagram, and then ultimately help them to make the connections, to make good decisions for themselves.
What was your first reaction when you discovered at 9 and 6 that they were like venturing onto the pornographic website? Like what
My
what did you
first
do?
was anger lah. I was very angry with myself more though. It's like, haven't I been doing this? Like, have I failed my child?
Oh
in
my
any
god.
way?
Okay. I see where you're
But I have to remember that, I have done what I can. And if it happens, then I think I need to go on plan B, right? So what's next? Not like bashing myself or bashing my child, right? And I don't think they deliberately looked for it. It kind of like popped up, and they were curious, and they clicked on one video after another. They were curious. And so there are content like that in different places. The kids in my class will tell me that sometimes it pops up in a game.
After that, what did you do then?
So I did approach my girls, after first settling myself.
So this
Because
is
I
very
don't-
important, right?
Yeah,
Settling
correct.
your own emotions, because you
Correct.
don't want to act out of anger.
Correct.
as well.
Because if we overreact, they would know that in future, if something happens, mommy is not going to be able to handle it. And I want to be sure that I want to maintain the reputation or the, what is in their eyes that mommy is the trusted place to go there. Like she won't like blow over the top,
Yes, yes,
Then
I see.
she will be the last person I talk to. So that was the first fire, right? That I have to deal with. So I learned to first manage myself, lah.
Okay.
And then have that conversation with them to make sure that there's no shame. And so I find that I have to withhold myself and be calm when I talk to them to say that, if are you curious about certain things, you know that you can talk to mommy and daddy about things that you are curious about, and this is not healthy for us, and can you remember not to do this again? Then of course they feel like guilty because I think intuitively they know that this is something that's not right. They may not know why it's not right, but they would sense that something is a little bit off. I think that comes when we first tell them what is healthy, what is good. Then when something that's a little bit questionable, they have this internal compass that says, I think something is not right, but I can't really articulate it. And I think we as parents need to be that place that if something is not right, I don't know how to put my handle on it, but I think I want to talk to mommy and daddy about it.
Yes.
So I think that first impression was what I was trying very hard to be able to present myself as a safe space. Yeah. And so avoid casting shame
On them.
avoid like accusing. Accusing it. Why do you do this? I think for very young children, you ask them why are they doing this, they will also not be articulate. It
Yes.
doesn't help the conversation. What I did was continue to talk about sexuality using contemporary issues. This is what schools use also, right? Use contemporary issues to draw out certain messages that we want our children to understand. And this kind of conversation is not just a once off. I hit it at 7, that's it, the same topic needs to come back.
Again and over and over.
Yeah, correct.
Well,
Yeah.
that's also one thing I learned from parenting, that you can't just think that, oh, okay, I've done this at this age and then that's it, my job's done. It's really work that continues and you just have to keep up with them.
Yeah.
But for you also did mention that it didn't go away. They went back to it.
Yeah.
And you were obviously very aware of them going back to it. Pornography that I'm talking about. Did you allow it, or like what? How did that happen?
I'm not one of those parents where I would have a control such that I know every site that they go to.
Right.
The approach I took, I think is similar to what you were sharing earlier about we want to empower our children
Yes.
and let them make the decision. Yeah, so that's the approach I took in terms of media content.
Right.
I tell them what is healthy and not healthy. Ultimately, what you put into your body, right, is really your choice.
And in this case, what you put into your
So
mind.
what into our mind? Yeah. So we put different things into our body through mouth in terms of food, but through our eyes and ears, we are also putting things into our body through the media that we consume. I did use parental control for a season. So until maybe when my children were in upper primary, until such time when they were in secondary school, I feel that I really need to beef up with the values part, the conversation part. Let them have opportunity to exercise their judgment. And that's where, I think they were consuming it, but not in my presence, of course. I cannot police what they consume all the time. So when they come to me with their struggle, part of me is sad that they have to be exposed to this. But for me, it's like when it comes from them, after all the protection when they were younger, when they make their own decision, to me, that is more precious. That is a sign of like they are building their internal filter. And now they speak with me about their struggle. And then they speak with me to encourage the young people, right? What are some of the things, what they could be struggling with? The temptation is very high, right? Because they are in a very complex environment. And how they can protect themselves. What decisions and why is it unhealthy?
Is it because, what I'm hearing from you is obviously your daughters trust you enough, also because of the way you had been with them, that they were willing to come to you to tell you that, hey, I have this struggle and I might need help. But then, why do people consume pornography for that matter? Is it because they're not receiving love enough? Or if we just smother our children with lots of love, would that stop them from wanting to, be curious about this?
And why do we across ages consume pornography? Actually, this is a question that the kids ask me. You know, does it mean that after a certain age it's okay? Parents ask
Oh
me
yeah,
that
yeah,
question
yeah,
too.
yeah.
Parents ask me the question too, right? And so my response to that is that research shows that pornography is harmful, right? When I teach a 9 to 12-year-old, the curriculum actually mentions that pornography tricks our mind. That the pornographic content, it could be a photo, it could be a video, it could be anime, cartoon. It tricks our mind that the person in that whatever media platform, it's an object and it's not a person with feelings. So it objectifies, right, someone else when actually we should be honoring somebody else. So pornography tricks our mind, and so it is not healthy. I mean, for older kids, when my kids were older, I also tell them that it's actually harmful to relationship. When actually sex, it should be something that is self-giving. It's not just about self-pleasure. When sex happens, it bonds two people deeply together, not just in bodily combining together, but there are also emotional, hormonal stuff that happens. Pornography actually, it's like sex, but actually it's not with a real person.
I think what I've also heard is that what happens when you sometimes when you consume pornography is, you sort of may have this preconceived notion about what sex is like, or what pleasure is like, or what an orgasm is like, but this experience can differ for people. And it affects your, it could be, I mean, we're talking not talking about children here, we're talking about like adults, right? And how it confuses you in terms of like, what if I can't achieve that sort of high that is portrayed in these pornographic videos, or whatever media that we are watching, then is there something wrong with me? But let's go back to talking about
Yeah.
like pornography for children for a bit, like their exposure to it.
Yeah.
What is like a session, maybe like a typical session, like for your workshops that you run with 9 to
Yeah.
12-year-olds?
The curriculum that I use, the first part is about understanding screen time, balancing screen time, that they can have control over that screen time. So it introduces an element of self-control. The second session talks about the brain development. So I was talking about the feeling brain and the thinking brain, to help the children understand how their brain grows, that they cannot just go on their feelings. I can feel like eating ice cream every meal. Doesn't mean that I should be eating ice cream every meal, or and how the thinking brain grows, how we need to protect our thinking brain. The third session only, then we introduce pornography. Pornography is defined in the curriculum, and which the 9 to 12-year-olds do understand. It's pornography is defined as it could be an image or video or cartoon or anime that focuses on the private parts of people that should have been covered under swimsuit, in a swimsuit. Those are private parts, and we do not share our pictures of our private parts, and we should not be seeing other people's private parts, because that's how we honor other people. So we don't talk about the arousal and the different stuff at that age. It's more about honoring ourselves and honoring other people. Does that make sense?
Yes, but having said that, I do think that at that age, I mean, I'm not sure at which age as well that we're talking about, that children start to have these sensations as well.
Yep.
Like, if I may use the word arousal, like just their body parts are
Correct.
a bit different. Like I talk about, like, biologically, like boys with penises, it hardens in the morning, and they find it strange, like, why is this happening? And some young girls, I've also heard they are also a little bit more sensitive. They have like a warm tingling sensation, and then they want to touch themselves, and it feels good to do that. So how do we cope, I mean, deal with this when, let's say, we have we discover our children either touching themselves or asking questions about why they have erections, and why do they have these feelings?
Yeah, those would be excellent opportunities to talk about not just the body, but also the meaning of those sensations, right? So the body, we would have talked to our kids about the difference between boys and girls, and along those lines, it would be also that those feelings are meant for a purpose. Those feelings are actually meant for sex, right? But for depending on the age of the child, we would say that, though when we have those sensations, it's nothing to be shameful of in the first. So first thing is always, if we discover our children touching, or sometimes they only do it because they are exploring their body, right? And we would say, if we discover, firstly, it's not shameful that that you're trying to figure out. Let mommy and daddy talk to you about those parts of your body and how you are growing in those areas, right? And so we can ask them, how do you feel about it, right? So as you mentioned, they could say that they feel good, it feels funny, what should I do with it? And we could suggest to them that, it means that your body, the parts of your body that is meant for you to be a daddy or a mommy in the future, those part of the body is working well, right? That means you're, and those feelings, that means those parts are working well. Those sensations are meant to be when you are older, when you are ready to be a mommy or a daddy. Those sensations are meant to be for future use.
I feel like this answer is good for like maybe my kids' age, because they would just okay, they would probably accept it, but then as they get older, it probably is going to be a little bit more complex. Correct. Right? And it's like I'm not hurting anyone, I'm pleasurizing myself.
So this is where, for older kids, that's where we want to add in the values behind it. Is sex meant to be self-pleasuring, or is sex meant to be between two people, right? And depending on the family values of parents, right? Is it just between two people who is not married, or is it meant to be in the context of marriage? Because, depending on how we articulate it based on your values. Some families' values could be, for example, that because sex is meant to be bonding two people deeply together, and the likelihood of creating a life is there regardless whether there's protection or not. Again, the contraceptive part, we need to talk to our children about it, and they learn it in school anyway, right? And so if we are saying that those sensations is meant to be part of sex, and if the purpose of sex is meant for procreation, right, or there's a likelihood that a life can be created, those things are then purposeful. So they need to understand what is the purpose. So which means, going back to touching themselves, being pleasurable, this is done in private, why does it matter? So if I go back to a specific situation, for example, where we combine consumption of pornography with masturbation. Usually, masturbation happens not just by itself. Most times it comes with an image in the mind that is combined with a bodily act to pleasure ourselves. And that actually creates a high that seems to imitate what sex is. So for some research, right, kind of like show that it produces similar hormones. It's like having sex, but we are having sex with an image. We are having sex with ourselves. Is that the purpose of sex? Or is the real sex much more fulfilling? Do we want to tell our children what would be in the best environment for them? Or is self-pleasure the only thing? For guys especially, there's also research that shows that when they consume pornography and combined with masturbation, there are some young men that face, early erectile dysfunction. That they are so used to being stimulated, when they consume pornography and combine with masturbation, that when they meet somebody that they really love, right, and they want to be intimate with them, they find that the real person cannot fulfill, that their body cannot
respond.
And it feels very sad for them and the partner. If our children can understand the true impact of it, then perhaps and I feel that, as responsible adults, we should be telling them about this kind of consequence that they may not hear from the larger narrative. Nobody is really talking about what are the real consequences, right? They just feel like this is nothing, right? We're just done in private. I think that
I'm not getting anyone pregnant. I'm not getting pregnant.
It's so safe, right? It's the safest thing.
I'm not, like I won't get any disease from this.
Correct.
I'm just sort of in the privacy of my own room or wherever it is.
Correct.
Right. So there's this, and also the fact that sometimes the more you sort of say not to do it, the more they are curious and they want to explore. And it's a little bit like bad habits, right? You know that this is not good, but then it makes you feel so good, and then you just want to keep doing it again and again.
Yeah, so I guess it's not saying no, we are saying yes, but there is a time and space for it. That is worth, wait until they grow up older,
Right.
right? So I'm still talking about children, huh? I'm not talking about the adults.
Yeah.
Adults is a different explanation, yes. And then if it comes to like, is it married, can or not?
And so I suppose what I'm hearing from you is also that if we do also stumble on our children masturbating, for example, that in the same way, like if we stumble on them watching pornographies, we shouldn't overreact, right? We should sort of, get a grip of our own emotions first, and then have like a calm conversation about their act and possibly the consequences of doing something like that. So it's not like saying outright no, although that's deep in our hearts, we are like, okay, please don't, please don't, please don't. But we also want to sort of not push them away. And we want to build that trust and earn that trust. And so we sort of just inform them about the consequences so that they know how they can, go about with this and whether or not they want to. And in fact, your experience with your daughters when it came to the pornography has shown that they actually came back to you.
Correct. I think that's where the concurrent building of relationship and trust is so important. In the curriculum that I teach the 9 to 12-year-old, there are specific skills, and they call it refusal skills, right? If something pops up, what can we do? And it's not just saying no, but it's giving children the power, right? If certain things happen, what should you do? Like you can close your eyes, you tell a trusted adult, don't just hide it, and distract yourself. And what happens if the images come back? The thing with pornography is that it's not like you will just control alternate delete and it totally disappears, right? It doesn't. It might, cannot reset. And sometimes it comes back, and so we do teach the children, if it comes back to mind, what should you do, right? You can choose to keep thinking about it, or we can actually have the power to do something else. And so when we give the children the power to say, actually, there's something that you can do, don't just feel frustrated or shameful, right? Practice those skills, right? And it makes your thinking brain stronger. I think they feel empowered to do something, to do the right thing. Yeah.
I actually had a friend told me this before, that she actually sat her children down to watch porn together. And she discussed it with them, and then they were actually quite disgusted with what they were seeing. And so, and I think that sort of killed the curiosity, because her sharing to me was that the reason why they explore is because they're curious. And if you are open about it, like the more open you are about it, then the less curious they will be, and then therefore you don't have such problems. Where do we draw this line?
Yeah. So I have got parents who ask me about, can I watch porn together? I would ask the question, like, if your child is curious about drugs, would you take drugs with your children? Where do you draw the line? And so if we know that something is harmful, so first is to decide for ourselves, is it something that's harmful? Right? And actually, porn have got different genres also, right? Does it mean that you're going to watch every genre with the child? Right? It's complex. Because once we watch porn with our children, it kind of like gives the children a signal that firstly, it's okay to watch porn. Right? Is it okay to watch porn? So I would strongly discourage parents to watch and use porn as a sexuality education.
So you're saying no, don't use porn as a sexuality.
I would want to avoid. There are many ways that we can introduce what pornography is without watching it together with them. And so what I'm trying to say is that we do want to give our children space to know what is healthy and not consume something that's unhealthy with them, thinking that it teaches them.
Tell me about this other fire you had to put out.
So one of them, I won't say who, came to me one day. She was maybe in secondary school, Sec 3, Sec 4. I was doing laundry, and then she came, Mommy, I have a confession to make. Mommy, I like a girl. But then I realized, again, I need to practice self-control. I need to take deep breath. Tell me more. and like kind of like as we talked through it, actually she was trying to tell me that she admired a senior. She admired a senior who can play netball very well because she plays netball. And so I have to unpack that feeling to say that actually what you're feeling is called admiration, right? That you are admiring someone that's nothing sexual in nature, you're not going to sleep with her, and kind of like just make it explicit in terms of what does like mean. And I think for me is perhaps I have been like so in tune with all these complexities that I think too much. So I kind of like learned that I need to go to that level and understand what she's trying to tell me,
Yes.
rather than me immediately thinking from my perspective, maybe this is what she's trying to tell me.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
and really take a step back and be calm and really draw out what is in them. And that takes time and really a lot of self-control.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking even about when I think I also remembered like I had a crush like when I was very young. I think like you have a little crush on the teacher, you have a crush on a classmate, like an older classmate, like how all these feelings that we have, like how would we? I mean, no one explained it to me when I was a child, obviously, and I was also very fearful to tell my parents about this because like you're not allowed to have a boyfriend until you're like 21 and this and that, and we don't talk about sex with our parents. So like it's almost like this sort of attraction that you have to someone else is something that we should not talk about. But because we are talking about sex talk and all that with young kids, therefore I'm thinking about this aspect of like crushing and this attraction that you have, and when a child comes back and tells me, I like this person, like how should we deal with that?
Yeah. I have another story to tell.
Oh, okay.
Got time to tell story?
Can say we love stories
The
here.
stories is when one of them was 12 years old. So it happened after PSLE, and she came back and said, "Mommy, somebody confessed to me." Then I was like, it cannot be happening to my 12-year-old. I'm not ready.
Oh my!
to
Somebody
talk.
likes her.
Yeah. And then she said, he confessed to me. I said, who is this boy? He's a Sec 4 boy, and she was P6.
Wow.
Then I was like, what? I'll be like, this cannot be happening to my 12-year-old. I had to like think, right? Do I leave them to settle amongst themselves? Should I be talking to the boy? Should I be talking to the boy's
Boy's
mom?
mom.
But
So what did you do?
and she felt so initially I thought she should have a chance to process this herself. So I said, there is a season for everything. We've been talking about this. It's and she liked this boy, okay, and this boy confessed to her.
Mutual. It's mutual.
It's mutual.
It's
And
true
I keep
love.
saying it cannot be happening to my. I'm not ready to deal with it as a mother of 12-year-old. But and she like, I wanted to give them space to like resolve it, like those feelings that you have.
What do you mean resolve it?
Like this is not the season, and she agrees that this is not the season for boyfriends. And we
Okay.
have talked about this, the purpose of dating and all this. We have talked about it when she was like P6 year. So I wanted to give her space to process it. I said, maybe you feel very strongly, but perhaps you should take a step back and cool off first and see what happens.
But cannot. The
Cannot
brain is
lah.
very feeling.
So never lah. Yeah, so never lor. So they continue to text until where I see that they're not getting anywhere. Then I
In terms of ending it, you mean?
yes. And then I like thought for a long time, should I be talking about to his mom? But I thought, okay, the next stage, if my 12-year-old, I didn't expect a 12-year-old to be able to manage this lah. Because it's the first time that
Yes.
somebody she likes confessed to her. And then I said, can we create a group chat?
With,
Create a group chat
with
with the boy.
Oh.
Yeah. And then, because he was 16, he was actually quite open to reasoning, more open to reasoning than my daughter. And it took some time for him to realize that actually, I'm also, sitting for major exams, I need to be also mindful. And ultimately, he chose to like stop this. But because of that experience, then my daughter understood what it means to feel so strongly bonded. They didn't even go out, they didn't like go for a date or anything. All they did was just exchange texts. It became like a teachable moment for her as well on how intense those feelings can be. And it was not even like going out, hanging out, hold hands or whatever. And it became like a reminder for us whenever we need to broach this again as she was growing into the teenage years on how strong those feelings can be. And those feelings, if we are not carefully managed, could lead to then certain choices that we make with our bodies.
Was she heartbroken? Because
Yes.
he broke it off, right? You said.
Yeah. So,
So she
it
must-
was a very intense.
She must have been so heartbroken. Was she angry with you? Like,
No leh,
oh, because of
thankfully no.
you.
No, because we have been articulating that from young.
It is so challenging because, I mean, I've come through this myself as well. You know, like I said, you know, having crushes on teachers, having crushes on older schoolmates, and you know, those feelings are so overwhelming at that point in time. So you know. And now that I'm a mother with a young daughter, I feel so incredibly protective, and I totally understand why my mom tells me, you know, you cannot have a boyfriend until you're 21, because, you know, back then I was like, come on, mom, like just don't be so old-fashioned and all that. But then now I feel that same urge to protect my daughter and like say, no, please don't. But having said that, you know, on the one hand, well, our hearts are telling us, no, we don't want this for them. Which the same things we've probably done when we were younger. On the other hand, we also kind of need to grapple with the fact that we have to sometimes let go, and we have to figure it out as we go along.
Yeah, I think
Isn't
the
it?
important thing is while we want them to have autonomy
Yes.
and various experiences, I think we do need to build their anchor about the purpose of their bodies, the purpose of sex, the purpose of dating, the purpose of marriage, the purpose of however they want to live their life, right?
Okay. Well, I think we've covered quite a bit, and we've addressed some of my big questions. I think it's still going to be very challenging for me because, as much as I have the theory, I think when it happens in real life, I'll be like, okay, calm down. And, you know, we got to kind of approach it in what is most appropriate at that point in time. Now, Carol, is there anything I sort of haven't asked you or didn't manage to draw out of you because I haven't asked the right questions that you commonly encounter in your workshops or parents might ask you about?
I think the most common question would be like, when is the right age to do this? When is the right age to do that? And I think at the start, I also always encourage parents to keep an eye on the children's readiness, right? Keep a watch on their media consumption, their habits, their diet. And when they are ready, try to keep a one step ahead, you know, have those conversations, be at the head of the game in that sense, so that our children know firstly that we have the knowledge to be able to support them. We want to avoid that perception that I tell mommy also no use because mommy don't know anything. So we may not need to know everything, and I don't think we should have this, you know, burden that I need to know everything. Otherwise, I better don't talk to my child. Otherwise, if they ask me something I don't know, then it's not credible.
Yeah.
I think it's okay not to know everything.
But at least we want to be the first
Correct.
people
And
that they come to.
if we don't know, we just say as naturally, that is a very good question. Let's go find out together. Yeah. And then always remember to go back to them and talk about it. I think to be able to journey with our children as they grow up and just be patient, be as calm as we can with whatever that might come our way. I think that goes a long way to help our children to be intentional with their bodies and with their choices.
Thank you so much, Carol. I think today we've unpacked quite a bit, especially with the recent emphasis on mental health. I think sexual health is also something that we are very mindful of and want to empower ourselves with the knowledge on how to be healthy in that way. So now that Carol has shared so much with us, is there anything that you're curious about or that you're broaching with your child that you want to have an answer to? If you do have a question, do leave it in the comments below. I think we will be happy to hear from you, and I'm sure Carol will be more than happy to help answer those questions. We've come to the end of this episode, and if you like this conversation that we have, please give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe so that you never miss a single episode. An audio version of this podcast is also available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. This wonderful episode is produced in partnership with my friends over at Zodapop by Zirap Media. This is Joanne Pei, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!